Morning, everyone. We've got a lot of people on today, which is great, and welcome back. I think a couple of Thursdays ago, or last Thursday, we met everyone at the conference, and thank you for attending on that. And today, we hopefully have got a clearer outline of what we are looking for and what you guys are looking for. Again, Saskia and I had a brief chat this morning, and the questions that are coming back from the Home Office are that they don't quite understand how to implement the guidance just yet, because they're asking us a lot of questions on the applications we put in. And some of them are quite strange questions. And so I think that after today, we'll be clearer. But then also, we're going to hold in a couple of weeks' time, we'll hold another webinar, because then hopefully the Home Office has settled down as to what they need to do and what they are going to be implementing. And we hopefully then will be able to either minimize the letter of undertaking and guardianship nomination, because there might be too much info in there, or we might have to add a bit. Yeah, it's really strange, some of the requests coming back. It's RFIs, so request for further info from the Home Office, recent applications. And as I said, some of them are very interesting, their requests. So and just to summarize quickly, that we've also had a couple of EU students apply and have been approved, and we've told them that they haven't had a guardian nominated and they're going home every holiday. So that's just a brief outlook to start with, and we'll summarize all this at the end. Thanks, Sass. If we can just go down. So that's what we're going to be doing, the practical guidance. And then at the end, we're hoping the end will be a longer session than what we're going to be telling you. So you guys will have questions, and we might have answered them, but please feel free. And as Sass said, just put it on the questions, and we'll try and answer those. So you're also going to see slides with loads and loads of writing on it. So it's not meant for you to be reading and doing those and me talking about every sentence. A recording of this and the slides will come out to you. So that's more for you to be able to read when they do get sent to you. I'm going to go through them and briefly go over it. So don't worry that some of the writing is really small, because I also can't really see that far either. So thanks, Sass. If we can just go down to the next one there. So just the appropriate arrangements, what they came out with in the new guidance. The caseworkers will have the power to refuse applications where they're not satisfied that the appropriate care and living and where applicable guardianship arrangements are in place. So that was what came out as CS 5A.1. And so we feel that there could be quite a big increase in discretionary grounds for refusals. We think that might initially happen, because as I've said, we're not too sure how they're going to be implementing it. And some of the caseworkers, from the questions they've sent us, aren't too sure how to implement it either. So we think that there could be a couple of refusals, or not a couple, more percentage of refusals. And that obviously isn't great. That's what we don't want. And we think the Home Office refusal rate could increase considerably, while everyone sort of wraps their head around what's okay and what isn't okay. So hopefully we're wrong, that they would rather be asking questions, and that's what we're finding, that they are requesting further information rather than just refusing the application, which is great. We would rather let them ask questions, or get them to ask us questions, rather than refuse the application. And again, I mean, that's what everyone knows, is why do they make fundamental changes mid-season? We confused, because we think it should have been done in October, when this season's over. Everyone can handle the changes, they can assess it, they can go and see what they should be doing. Caseworkers will be dealing with a lot less volume, and then they can get things right. At the moment, the caseworkers on their desks have got cases that were submitted before the 29th of May and they've got cases after the 29th. So we're not too sure, do they know which ones they're dealing with, and can they approve the ones before the 29th without anything? And so anyway, that's just something that we've got to all wrap our heads around. Thanks, As. Okay, so just the actual formality of what they're saying. A guardian is over 18 years or older or over, and is appointed by the parent or legal guardian. So we've all seen that, and the person must not be a private foster care close relative, is the child student living with during term time, or a student's parents. So that's all written, and everyone's read that. A nominated guardian can mean either the main homestay host or the educational guardianship organization. This is normally appointed by the parents, but you could have an accredited guardianship organization that appoints its homestays, but they would be the ones that would maintain overall responsibility for this arrangement. And some of the guardianship organizations act as the host and both homestay and emergency contact. So yeah, that's just the written proof of it there. And then also they need, if the applicant will be living with a nominated guardian, a close relative, private foster care, they must be a British citizen or have settled status. So just making sure that where you're checking your settled status, there's no more BRPs and that now, so you'll be getting an e-visa, share code, and just check it says there, are they indefinite leave to remain settled, or it should say, it might say, no time limit to this person staying in the UK. So those are the ones that are, those people are allowed to be guardians. And they must obviously live full time, have permanent residency in the UK. And what's quite key is that they shouldn't be somebody who travels a lot. So they might be out of the country 3 months of the year during their work. So that's not an ideal person. They might fit the bill on everything else, but they do a lot of traveling. And so, yeah, you don't want to have a guardian that does that. Thanks, Seth. Again, small writing, but just what needs to be in the letter of undertaking. And so you'll be able to see these slides, but it's the name, current address, and contact details of the intended carer, where they'll be living. Confirmation of the accommodation is a private address and not commercial. The relationship between the intended carer and the parents, and the list of people that'll be living at the carer's home or the guardian's home, and if the applicant's not boarding, then there's money involved. Obviously, during term time, the carer has to have at least 570 per month and available to look after and accommodate for up to the 9 months. That's the funds that are needed. So those are all the written things. As I said, I don't want to read the slides, but that's just the summary of what needs to be in the letter of undertaking. And nominated guardians, they need to read and understand this letter of undertaking, because this is where the problem has fallen prior to this, is that, as I've said before on other webinars, and maybe even, I can't remember, at a conference, where a guardian has been phoned up to say the student is contagious, for instance, and needs to leave the school, and the guardian says, well, I'm just a friend, I didn't actually know as a guardian, and I've got small children at home, and so no, they're not coming to my house, but thanks for phoning, and put down the phone. Then the school's in a bit of a awkward situation. So yeah, they need to know what their duties are as a guardian, and they needed it to be, the Home Office originally wanted it signed by the guardian, but obviously there are guardianship organizations, so they've made areas that a guardianship organization can be on the nomination form, on the letter of undertaking to originally, and so they might ask for more information, and that's what we have. It says caseworkers might ask for more information. We have had further information requests at the moment, so they are doing what they say they're going to be doing. And yeah, we just need to, we'll go on to summarizing this a bit more at the end. Thanks, Sass. So on the 29th of May, as everyone knew, the guidance states where the child student will have a nominated guardian in the UK, but does not have the details of the point of application, and this been arranged through a guardianship organisation, then the details of the guardianship needs to be put on, and it's a name and contact details of a member of staff at the guardianship organisation. The name and address of the guardianship organisation, which most people have, but then the new ones that have come out that I haven't seen prior to this, but there's the date the guardianship organisation was established, and confirmation that all guardians that the organisation use have a current enhanced DBS check in Wales and Scotland and in Northern Ireland, the various types. Thanks, Sass. Also, it does state that the caseworker must check that the intended carer or guardianship organisation is British citizen, settled in the UK. They must have the evidence of settled status under the EU settlement scheme is sufficient to meet this requirement, and any other evidence of the immigration status must be provided with the application. And then those are the type of documents that are acceptable, a biographic page from the passport, and the settled status confirmation, as I said, an e-visa or a certificate of naturalization if they're a UK citizen. And so you don't need the originals. Copies are okay of these type of things. Thanks, Sass. Okay, so we've got a very rough template here, and we've broken up into Part A and Part B. And again, we're not too sure if a caseworker receives just Part B, which the guidance says you need the letter of undertaking, and it's the second part of it where you haven't seen the nomination form. So if they only receive the guardian signing the letter of undertaking, we are not too sure if the caseworker can see that the parents have actually nominated this guardian. So we've made it all one document where Part A is where the guardian nomination form and the parents nominate this guardian and sign and agree to all the living arrangements, etc., and to say that they are either the legal guardians or biological parents, or they've got sole legal responsibility, whatever the situation is, and then they both sign it. And so that's what we've got on Part A of it. And then Part B, thanks, Ash. Part B would be the actual letter of undertaking by the educational guardian or carer. And again, we'll get you these out, so you'll have samples of this, but and I won't read it all, but that would show now to the Home Office caseworker that the parents have nominated this person, and yes, they have agreed. And what I just want to make sure that you do also have is that in section number 10, the agreement, where we put there, and they have read the school or college's guardian policy. You need to make sure that the guardians have actually read your policy, or if you send it to them, if they haven't read it, that's their problem, but they've signed to say that they've actually read it. Because in your policy, you might want to put certain things in there. For instance, if a flight is cancelled, whose responsibility is it to look after that student overnight? Is it the school to go and fetch them from the airport and then to come back to the school? I don't think that's ideal. When I was director of boarding, that staff, their wheels are screeching when it's end of term, and they are out of there. So I think it would be great if you've got your guardian policy within that to state certain things that you would like the guardian to be doing, especially something like a cancelled flight. But again, that's totally up to you. And I don't mind looking over guardian policies and just to see that you've got it in there, and it covers you across the board. So again, there's areas here. So criminal record declaration that I confirm that no adult residing in or regularly present at the address, including myself and any employees, etc., have any criminal history. Now, this has been a little bit not well. I'd say there's a couple of different opinions out there. Some schools have been advised by various parties that you need to do a DBS check on every staff member of that house. You need to get an enhanced DBS check because the caseworker at the Home Office is, if they are worried, they're going to be doing their own checks. So you don't need to provide a DBS certificate with the application form on that guardian. But then other schools have been advised, or what about the other people living in the house? Who's going to be doing checks on them then? And again, like I said right at the beginning, it's going to take weeks to settle this down as to what they actually want and what they don't want. At this present time, I cannot see it being feasible for you to be doing enhanced DBS checks for everybody that lives in that household. I mean, there's a cost, there's time. How do you know you've covered everybody in that household, that they actually been true, that who's living with them? I think I might be wrong, and they might come out in a couple of weeks to say, well, you got to now submit DBS certificates for everyone in the household, and we're not accepting. I can't see that them saying that, because they haven't said that in the guidance. So it is a grey area, but some people are being advised to do that, and you're more than welcome to do that. I mean, that would be absolute best practice total, but again, I don't think it's feasible for schools to be doing this from the cost perspective, time perspective, to get that done. So again, that might be in very few areas to be doing those type of things.
Sorry, Steve, we seem to have lost the slides, so I'm just going to stop sharing and start sharing again, and hopefully that does the trick. Let's see.
Yeah,
can everyone now see the slides? Oh, you could.
I could originally. I'm now back to it. Yes, I can see it.
Can everyone see them? Steph can see them, so I'm hoping. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So again, a bit of a contentious, not contentious, but of a different in opinion area. But we haven't had any requests for those certificates as of yet. I mean, it is only a couple of days after they've implemented it, but we've had a lot of other requests for further information, but nothing along that line. Okay, and then just we've also put there the attachments that's applicable. So again, those type of things need to go with this document to the visa, the caseworker with the visa application. That very tiny wording on that slide, we'll get back to, and you'll have those slides anyway. Thanks, Sass. Okay, so just clarifying a couple of things. So emergency contact, they should have emergency contact for their time in the UK. The guidance says that the school can act as an emergency contact, but then you'll see on the right-hand side of the slide that the NMS, the National Minimum Standards for Boarding Schools, Standard 22.5 says that every student must have a guardian, and it mustn't be someone from the school, those type of things there. So yeah, we it's again up in there, but emergency contact, yes, needs to have it. And then permitted living arrangements. So this is where it's key, where the caseworker is looking as to where they're living, how they're living at this accommodation, who's in the accommodation, and should we approve this visa application. So a full boarding. And as I said right at the beginning, we've had since last Friday, when we've put applications in for EU students, we've put on the application, because again, they're going to be full boarders, and then they're going to go home at end of terms and half terms. for now. That's what they are saying, and we've put that in the application, and that was Friday and Monday, and by today they've been approved. So those visa applications, we didn't give a letter of undertaking or anything to that effect, and they were a full boarder going home every holidays. And then weekly boarding, it's the same, similar type of thing, flexi boarding, living with private foster care. Now we're getting to a bit of a different area where they're private foster cares, and then obviously living with a parent because they're under 12 and they're coming in as a parent of a child. 16 or 17, quite a dangerous one, where they're saying 16 and 17-year-olds can live independently. I think most schools, hopefully in their policies, they say, no, you're not allowed to be living independently. There's other areas, you must be a boarder or etc. But the UKVI guidance does say that they can live independently if needed. And so I'll show you a couple of screenshots from the application forms in the next couple of slides towards the end, as to on the application form what it looks like if you haven't come across that just yet, and what we've got to fill in and how it comes up on the application forms. And so just again on the Q&A, on the right hand side of that slide, the Q&A guidance states that it's acceptable for students to stay with their parents in the UK outside of term time. They can return home. When they return home, they can attend a study camp provided the parent has consented. They can stay in school provided the school's still open, obviously with staff members. In these scenarios, a full-time boarding student may not need a nominated guardian, a close relative, or private foster care if the school is fulfilling the role of an emergency contact. Again, a bit of a clash between National Minimum Standards, ISI, and UKVI. And they would not be required to provide a letter of undertaking. So that was in the Q&A guidance that came out, and we've got proof of that. Like I mentioned, we haven't submitted letter of undertaking, and the visas have been approved. And so again, these arrangements, permitted living arrangements, does not prevent a student attending a school trip or staying with a friend on the weekend. We've also heard that if a student comes across with their parents and they're very nervous, they can stay with their parents for a bit before they actually join as a full-time boarder in the school. That is permitted. And then the one thing that's always there, it says for a period of less than 28 days. It came, and when I'm at inspections, I speak to the inspectors and they say, oh, Steve, there's an internal argument that 28 days, is it continuous or is it 28 days added up over the year? And they internally, they're confused. But in the Q&A guidance, it came out, it says it's 28 continuous days. So that's what the guidance says. So hopefully the inspectors get that, because at the moment, my recent inspection, they're still saying there's an internal argument. But it did say continuous days. So, okay, thanks, Zaz. So then just when we're appointing a guardian, remember, so you've got a couple of options. The guardianship agency, okay, so then that's sorted. The guardianship agency will give you, if they're Aegis accredited or BSA accredited or any other accredited agency, then they'll give you a letter of undertaking, and they've covered all the bases that they need to cover. But if they are a friend of a friend, or they are auntie that's especially Europeans, they don't want to go through to a nominated guardianship company. So if it's some individual, then you guys just need to do your own due diligence on that. So you would get the nomination form, you would get the letter of undertaking all signed and covered, and then you do your own checks. That and we always advise it, but again, the guidance says 18, but we advise that the actual guardian is 25 or older, and I think most schools have stuck to that right from the beginning too. So they've already got that in place. They should reside within a certain location. 3 hours or 2 hours driving distance, or 50 miles, or whatever you want to state. They're not in full-time education. They hold a British or Irish nationality or settled. They don't travel extensively. You would get their proof of address, like a utility bill, to prove where they're actually living, and you'd get them to tick the boxes to say that they've got no criminal history. So from that perspective, you are covered by having a guardian. So again, for ISI inspections, it says on the national minimum standards, all students need or international students need a guardian. So you can have that in place. But from UKVI, we could put the application in to say they're going back home every holidays, and so there's no letter of undertaking, and they're a full-time boarder, and the visa will be approved. So you need a guardian from ISI and national minimum standards, but if they are going home, you don't need to have a guardian nominated for UKVI purposes. But we'd always state, have a guardian, because that covers all the bases. Thanks, Seth. Okay, so then they also brought out, just briefly, travel arrangements, and I think most schools have either done it themselves or they've outsourced to various companies. As you saw in our conference last week, we brought Reach in to talk about theirs, but there's other companies out there that do the exact same things, and so you outsource that to the travel, because they are now looking more, and I've seen at recent inspections, they are looking at the safeguarding areas, and travel falls under that, and now guardianship, as you know. So you need to keep records, and the latest inspection that I did, not latest, so it must have been about a month ago, 2 months ago, they are now getting their reports now to say that they've passed. But please be aware, there's an action point here. Please be aware you didn't monitor when the student came into the country, or you didn't have proof to tell us where they came in. The next point was you did provide us with that proof within 24 hours, so we are now happy. So you need to keep records of when they arrive into the country, what they're doing before they arrive at the school, if they're going to spend a week or so in London before they arrive with you or whatever, then how they're getting to you, then during holidays, how they're leaving you, where they're going, what they're doing, these type of things. So it does come up at inspections, and it is an action point in your report if you don't have these type of documents to show. And then obviously if they don't arrive at school, then we would need to be doing reporting to say this is a non-enrollment and whatever, because hopefully not ever, but it could be a traffic student, or it could be someone claiming asylum, and we need to report those. And then living arrangements after they arrive in the UK. So this again is a grey area. You might say, the parents might say they're coming home every holidays, and we're doing all this, and so they get the visa, but then that changes. Okay, no, sorry, they're not coming home every holidays. We're going to be doing this. And so they've said sponsors must make sure any new arrangement still meets UKVI rules, including having updated PCLs, so parental consent letters, and a new letter of undertaking if needed. They do not need to report the change to the UKVI unless they believe the new arrangement does not meet the rules. In that case, they must report this issue and explain what actions have been taken. Again, this process is ongoing review and may be updated in the future. So 16, 17-year-olds, we've covered that already, where they can live independently. And then age of nominated guardian, we all laughed at it, where 18 or older. If I'm a parent, I'm definitely not letting my 17-year-old be looked after by an 18-year-old guardian. So, but that's the UKVI guidance, and that's what it states. Thanks, Sass. Agents. So agents now, you'll see on a couple of slides time, you'll see a sample. We need to put we don't need to. There's an optional area to put the agent's details in the CAS or the visa application form now, and the CAS. So it's not mandatory yet, so that we can see coming out. And then all of you should have seen or come across the AQF, the Agent Quality Framework. And so you need to read that, check that it's all, that you are following that. And then at the bottom of that area, there's some documents, and you just go to the pledge, click on the pledge, download that and sign it. It says e-signature. And that's the pledge that you will be following this agent quality framework. And we suggest doing it sooner rather than later, but they've encouraged you to do it before September. But we think most of you follow, if not all of you, follow this pledge anyway. And I think most of this has come out for universities to follow, not so much independent schools. But for you guys to sign to say, yes, we do follow all this. And again, the agent's details on the CAS, and they would correspond that to the agent's list that you're sending once a year to the Home Office. They would correspond that this agent is on your list. If they're not on that list, that's also fine, but you'll get a further request for information, because they'll say, we noticed this isn't on your list you sent us last, please explain. And it could be a new agent that you've just onboarded, and they would just say, please show us your due diligence that you've done for this agent, and it's all fine. So don't worry if they're not on your existing one, because we only send that once a year, and you could appoint agents in the interim. BCA. So BCA, your basic compliance assessment is coming coming through to be changed, not yet. So what they call it the white paper, where the government releases a white paper as to what they intend to be doing, and those thresholds could be changing. So the main one that could be a worry is your refusal rate, and not for us, hopefully, because if we get a lot of refusals for you, you must say, cheers, Steve, we're not working with you anymore because you're giving us too many refusals. But that is not hopefully, they are hoping to drop it to 5% from 10%. So 5% refusals. Again, this is discretionary, and what they've stated in the past is that anyone who issues 50 CAS or more in a year, it'll be fixed on that 10%, the old 10%. So I could imagine it'll be fixed on the 5%. Anyone who issues less than 50 CAS, then it's on their discretion. Because if a school issues 2 CAS in a year, one's refused, you've got a 50% failure rate already, or refusal rate. So they would take that into account. They won't stick to the enforcement of what those percentages are. And then the course completion rate has increased to 90 from 85, and enrollment rate is 95%. So most of you absolutely got no worries about this at all. The only thing is everyone worries about being inspected. This is an inspection every year that they do online. And if you're getting close to these figures, etc., they are then going to be saying, okay, we're going to put them as a amber or a red, and that's where they'll be watching the school because these rates are getting close to failure rates or whatever. So that could be triggering an inspection or another inspection. But again, this is in the white paper, hasn't been introduced yet, and there's no date that they've put in place for this. Thanks, Sass. Right, what should you do now? Okay, so review your guardianship policies and record keeping. Okay, so go out and make sure those are in place and check the wording of guardian policies. And as I say, I'm quite happy to have a once over of those just to see what's in there and have you covered everything. And then update internal checklists to make sure you've got the letter of undertaking. So when you're doing your own internal audit, and I was doing an audit yesterday, a mock audit, and when we go through what we used to call the Appendix D documents, it's now called sponsorship duties, some fancy names that they're coming out with now. It used to be called Tier 4, now it's child student visa, all means the same thing. So when we're going to check all these documents that you have to keep, that is the next document you need in there. So I think there's about 7 or 8 documents, and most of you should have my crib sheets of what the questions are, number one, and two, what documents you need to have on every sponsored student file, and what documents you need to have on every student that's subject to immigration controls file. Those lists you should have. If you don't have them, chat to me and I'll send you across those. And we've got templates. Some people call it a UKVI toolkit, but we've got everything that you need. If you want to call it a toolkit, we've got our templates too, that are just tick boxes to say, this student, have I got this? Have I got that? Have I got the PCL, translated birth certificate? Have I got letter of undertaking? Tick boxes. So that would get you a bit of peace of mind, and to make sure you've got that. We obviously do that for you too, and that's what I check in mock audits to make sure those are all in place. And then just verify all living arrangements that they now conform to their updated categories, whatever categories the students are going to be going into. Just check your BCA metrics. So we do that for you. So and then just plan for the new thresholds. I don't know how you can plan, because the refusal rate is we making sure that doesn't happen. But again, like I said, in the next weeks or so, the Home Office might start refusing more than normal, just because of these, they don't know how to implement it. And then attendance policy, please review your attendance policy. Make sure you've got a paragraph there about sponsored students. Otherwise, if you've only got a paragraph about your local authority attendance and when you have to report to them, you could be caught short come in a UKVI inspection. So that wording for the attendance policy for UKVI sponsored students, we have, and you can utilize it and put it in and adapt it to whatever you need. But that is very big at the latest inspections. And then check your travel approval and safeguarding process and procedures. So make sure you've got that. And if you outsource it to the various companies that you use, I'm meeting with a couple of them, because they are now asking me, right, what do we need to make sure we covered in all this? So I'm meeting with various companies over the next couple of weeks, and they might just be tweaking their things that they need to be doing. And then again, it's just best practice that everybody in the staff knows and understands these changes, because otherwise it's always lumped on admissions or marketing staff, and you guys are sorting it out. Meanwhile, it's the boarding staff, it's the authorizing officer who's the head, it's various other positions around the school, the attendance officer, the safeguarding officer, because the DSLs are now being inspected for 45 minutes during an inspection. So DSLs need to know these type of things. So just make sure internally you've got it. And again, during my mock audits, we go through all of this again. So I've got a lot of audits coming up, and so we'll cover it. And remember, never panic. Everything's okay. Thanks, Seth. So just in a summary, comprehensive, robust educational guardianship policy and agreement is absolutely essential. Okay, so and it's a requirement of NMS, boarding schools, for ISI inspections. Guardians, living arrangements. Okay, if they're going every holiday, going home every holiday, they don't need a guardian for UKVI application, but NMS says you have to. Letter of undertaking needed for the application in certain instances and to be kept on file. They can use guardians that are not Aegis, BSA, or any other company approved, but there needs to be due diligence done on that, which we've covered. And your policy, guardian policy, should be checked and maybe updated. As I said, agents need to sign the AQF pledge, and in that section there, attendance we've covered. Inspections, like I said, attendance and DSL are scrutinized more in recent inspections. Travel, we've covered there. Again, this is just a summary. And then BCA, we've covered too. So this is a summary page that after all my 30 or 42 minutes of talking is summarized into that page. So I'm sure most of you are saying, Steve, why didn't you just go to the summary page instead of wasting our time? So hopefully you're still awake, and we're on that page there and now as a summary. I think the next ones are a couple of samples, Sass. So these are when we doing the applications now. These are screenshots of what happens on the applications there, on the CAS, and that's on the visa application, living arrangements and what you filled out. Living arrangements outside of school, the tick box at the bottom, I'll not be living anyone outside of school times, because this person's going to be going home. They're full board and they're going home every holiday. So that's just a screenshot of that. Thanks, Ass. Details of person you'll be living with in the UK. Again, you can see what it's got there. The one thing I brought this one up, it's got UK national insurance number. Now that is the one area that you can leave blank and carry on with. You don't, it's not compulsory. The rest would be a compulsory area. That is, you can leave blank and bypass that. Thanks, Sass. So this is the agent section. So did you use an agent? Then please give us the agent company name, contact family name, given name, their address, the city or town they work out of, etc., and what country they're from. And I'm hoping all of you don't use sub-agents, but if you do, we just need to check your contracts with the umbrella agent to make sure that they're doing the due diligence on sub-agents, that you're not doing due diligence sub-agents. And then this section here would be key as to who we fill in there. So let's hope you're not using sub-agents. Thanks, Sass. And then right at the end, it comes out, right, these are the documents and mandatory documents that you need to supply with this application form. And for this one, we saw it says you need to provide the passport or travel document for this person, and then other documents. It printed out 3 times of the exact same thing of this. If you do not provide your birth certificate, letter of consent, etc., printed that out 3 times on the same page. You need to provide this, plus you need to provide this, and it was all the same things for 3 times. So again, as we know, they are learning how to do it from the caseworker and UKVI side, and we'll be adapting and learning from them too as to what they want and how they want it. I think that might be the last slide. Sass, is that right? Yep. So Q&A.
Perfect. There's been quite a few questions in the chat. I've gotten to some of them, but not all of them. There has been quite a few questions, Steve, if you maybe want to just talk. There's been quite a few questions as to whether these changes need to apply retrospectively. So if there were guardians appointed last year or before the 29th of May and they have a visa. So maybe if you want to just talk about that, because there were a few questions about that.
Yeah, they've said nothing retrospective, and it always from the 29th onwards, when the guidance came out, these are the new. And again, like I did mention there, and the caseworkers have got applications on their desk at the moment. Some of them were submitted on the 28th, and some of them are submitted now. So they are also getting confused as to, okay, the 28th one, I've got to remember, I don't need to put these new regulations in on this application. And then sometimes, as Saskia, I think she said earlier today to me, was they are asking for stuff where they shouldn't be asking for stuff. They've requested further information because it's a case that was put in prior to the 29th. So caseworkers are also getting a bit confused, but no, it's not retrospective. No.
Thanks, Steve. And then I think there's been a few questions, so just a bit of confusion around the DBS checking. So if you're using an accredited guardianship company that is accredited, the responsibility is on that company to make sure that their underlying guardians are DBS checked. And then there was just a question around in the letter of undertaking, if they're nominating a friend or a family, around the DBS checking of that person. But that person doesn't need to be DBS checked as long as they have signed in the letter of undertaking that they don't have a criminal record and no one in the household has a criminal record. So you don't have to privately DBS check all of the guardians that are a kind of family friend or somebody known to the family already in the UK.
Yes, and that's how we read it. That's what the guidance says at the moment. How the caseworkers actually implement it, we have been told that the caseworkers, if they suspect something, they will be doing their own checks online, but they won't be told who's living in the household, and so they won't be able to do that. But as I said right at the beginning, we don't believe that you can say, okay, there's 10 people in this household, we need to do 10 different DBS checks for all 10 of them. We cannot believe that's going to happen. I don't want to say here on this webinar, it will definitely not happen, but I cannot believe that that would be implemented at all. As I said, I've heard yesterday and the day before that some schools have been advised by other people that you must do it, and they are going to be doing that. At the moment, you don't need to.
Thanks, Steve. And then there is a question around, is there any guidance on how many pupils a private guardian can be nominated for? Because some schools have a lot of children with the same nominated guardian, and the expectation is they probably have students from other schools too.
Yeah, so that's again that grey area, because some schools implement in their own policy that guardian can only do 3 or maybe 4. So some schools have got that already implemented in their own policies, but there's no guidance out there that says that. The only thing is in a carer, you need to show money, £570 per student over 9 months per student that you've got in the household. So that's why we've got on that guardianship nomination form the names if you are caring for anyone else. And I think that would let the school know that, okay, this guardian, a potential guardian, has got 15 students. We don't think that's the right place for the student to be going to this guardian, because we don't think that one person at this household can look after 15 students properly from a safeguarding perspective. So we would suggest to the parents, can you nominate someone else, please? But there's no actual official guidance.
Thank you, Steve. And then there was a comment, you commented about the DSL being involved in the inspection. Is that new? We haven't included a DSL in upcoming mock audit schedule, should we?
Yes. And sorry if it's with us that you're doing a mock audit inspection.
It is.
Yes, you please do. They used to do an hour and a half with HR. Now it's 15 minutes or 10 minutes with HR, and it used to be 0 with DSL. Now it's half an hour to 45 minutes with the DSL. And sometimes there's a bit of a crossover as to HR doing annual training for staff, or is the DSL doing the annual training. So there's a crossover between the 2 departments. But yes, brand new, come out. Only the last 3 inspections that I've done, UKVI inspections, have they started this. So I don't know if that's a trend. And normally I wait for about 6 months to see if that's a trend in every inspection, or if it was just those inspectors that thought that this was a good idea to do. But I think that they've been instructed to include DSL more than ever, because as you can see, safeguarding is becoming their priority at the moment.
Thank you, Steve. And then how will you know if an agent is using a sub-agent? So if you have a contract with an agent and then they go on to use a sub-agent without your knowledge, how would you know, and how would the Home Office view that?
Yeah, so again, it's only how you at the inspection when you answer the question. So it depends. Sometimes I say a great answer is, to my knowledge, they don't use sub-agents. But you would check that. For my advice, I always say in your agent's contract, there should be something that says, if you use sub-agents, we are expecting you to be doing your due diligence on these sub-agents. We will not be doing due diligence. And please, can you inform us if you are using sub-agents? That's something to that wording, maybe not that exact wording, but something to that effect needs to be in the contract, or an addendum or an appendix A, just in the contract, so that it does cover you come an inspection. They just very worried about sub-agents and who is doing the due diligence on the sub-agent. And if you don't have that in the contract, then the inspectors would say, right, what due diligence have you done on the sub-agent? And then you're going to be maybe saying, I didn't even know they were a sub-agent, and I'm sorry. So you just don't want to be caught out, and one paragraph or one sentence in the agency agreement covers you for all of that.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. And then, can an agent be a guardian?
Yes, unfortunately, no, redact that. Yes, they can, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So they can be a guardian, but obviously they have to meet the requirements.
Correct.
And then for an audit, does it have to be the DSL or can it be the deputy DSL?
Deputy DSL, fine, and no problem at all, as long as they can explain everything. And normally they don't. The experience that I've had recently is that they don't want to be called into an inspection at all because they are deputy DSLs. They're not DSL, but yes, you can include a deputy.
Perfect. And then someone wants to know if they've got a renewing student that they're issuing a new CAS for a new visa. Will they need to get the guardian's visa status and passport details?
Yes, because unfortunately, I think I saw the question that they were in year 11, now they're joining year 12. So unfortunately, it's classified as a new visa and you're applying for a new visa after the 29th of May. So the new regulations come into place before they would approve that visa. So unfortunately, yes, you need to go through that whole due diligence of the new regulations, even though they could have been a guardian for them for 6 years or 10 years before.
Thank you, Steve. And then if the agent is accredited by BBSN or Study Travel, etc., who do the checks on member agents, do we need to ask for copies of the checks to submit, or is noting they are accredited by BBSN enough?
Yeah, noting that the BBSN Study Travel, as long as, just noting that's fine.
Perfect. And then we often get students not staying at their nominated guardian in holidays, but being farmed out to other families. Their parents have agreed to this, but is the Home Office's expectation that they stay at their nominated guardian every holiday?
It is, because safeguarding is their priority. Now, if they're being shipped off to someone else, who is that someone else? And yes, parents might have agreed, but again, we know some parents might not be fluent in English and they might not know what they're agreeing to, and we don't know where they're going. So in essence, the Home Office can't check these things. So I mean, it's not going to be a major crisis from the Home Office side, because we're going to put on the visa application that they are doing X, Y, Z. It's just from your own safeguarding side. If the guardian is saying we're going to take on this role, next minute we can't do it, but we're shipping them to my next door neighbor who's great, they only have parties like between 1 and 4 a.m. in the morning, then that's the safeguarding aspect that the school needs to be checking. But from a UKVI, they cannot track all of that. Only obviously if you submit that during the application form, which I would presume we would get a refusal.
Thank you, Steve. There's been a few requests for a copy. So the recording of this webinar will be shared with all of the attendees. You are welcome to share it wider. So we will also do a mailer, because we have had a few requests to our entire database. So you're absolutely welcome to share it. And then I know there's been a few requests for the attendance policy wording. We will include that in the mailer follow-up, so you've all got it. And we can also send, I know there was 1 or 2 requests for agent template. We've got agent templates. We've got guardian nomination form templates, as you've seen, because Steve shared some of it. And we've got letter of undertaking templates. Those templates, of course, must make sure that they meet your own internal guardianship policy. So, for example, you might have, as Steve mentioned, a certain jurisdiction or length from the school, so a couple of miles or hours. So you must just make sure that you've tailored it to make sure it's fit for purpose for your specific requirements, but we're very happy to review those if required. Few more questions. Should the school meet private guardians in person or online?
That would be best practice. It would be absolutely best practice, because I would meet them online just to check that they are actually a person. Then I would invite them to all, parents' evenings. So listen, and maybe that might be a thing you put in your guardian policy, that they have to attend parents' evenings so that you can actually physically see them too. You don't have to, but these are just ideas. But yes, as best practice, not compulsory, as I say, from a regulation perspective, but I would definitely. Some people are saying, oh, do we have to go and visit their homes? No, you don't have to go and do that. I mean, that's time consuming, and it'll be a staff member's full-time job. But yes, it would be good.
Perfect. And then we'll do the last question, but we will send kind of a follow-up. And of course, you are welcome to call us if we've left anything kind of unanswered. But there were a few questions around full-time boarding students not staying with their guardians and going home every holiday. Do they even need a guardian at all?
No, according to the UKVI rules, no, but national minimum standards, your ISI inspection says that every international student must have a guardian. So they can have a nominated guardian there, but they don't need to go and stay with them or do anything. But come an ISI inspection, that's the national minimum standards. Sorry, I'll just quickly answer the one just above that. If it's a friend from school who is invited to stay for the holidays, that's absolutely fine, because you do know the parents that are they're at your school anyway, and so you just get parents' permission from both parents, and yes, they can stay with them, absolutely no problem. Sorry,